Welcome to Big Blend Radio with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to today's Big Blend Radio Soul Diving Sunday show with Shelley Whizin. You've got to go check out her new website. It is awesome, and there's so many resources there if you want to live a better, happier, yummy, delicious life. Go to ShelleyWhizin.com. Today, she is back on the show. She is here every first Sunday, and she is back on the show. She's got a special guest, Lisa Dimond, with her. Of course, Nancy and I are here. Shelley is here, and we're going to talk about mothers and daughters, those special relationships that can get complicated, but are also the most precious. And so, yeah, this is going to be quite a conversation. We can't wait to dive into it. May is Mother's Day month. Mother's Day is always the second Sunday. It is Nancy's birthday. She was born on Mother's Day. I have to bring this up because if I don't, you know what happens to me. But anyway, everyone, Shelley is the founder and CEO of the Soul Diving Institute. And that is where she studies and teaches the art and science of being human. And she works with people as a transformational life coach. She's also the author of What Do You Bring to the Table? A savory, sensory, and inspirational guide to living a yummy, delicious life. Lots of good recipes in there for Mommy's Day, I'm just saying. She's also the author of The Healing Journal and the story of the magical baby grand piano. So again, the new website is ShelleyWhizin.com. So first off, welcome back to the show. Shelley, how are you?
Thank you. I'm good. Thanks for having me again. I just love this so much.
This is going to be fun. You're like, I'm ringing in the mother-daughters, and we've got Lisa here. So Lisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I want to say, no, we're going to have to call you Lisa D on the show. Like Shelley's article, and everyone, Shelley's article about this is up on blendradioandtv.com. So Shelley D, but I mean, Lisa D, here it is, Lisa D. But you know that is my nickname, right?
That's so
funny. My middle name's Diane. So a lot of times I used to go by Lisa D. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
So, you know, so Lisa, your name Lisa, did your mom name you after Mona Lisa, or like how did the name Lisa come from? Do you know?
I think in 1965, it was like the top 5 girl names, and that's what she picked.
Okay. Nancy did the Mona Lisa. Nancy's an artist, so she's like, and then I came out with them talking. They didn't have to slap me.
No, the doctor says the first baby that he didn't know what planet she was from, but she was speaking some unknown language, but that she was already talking.
But Nancy didn't have her water broke while she was watching The Exorcist at the drive-in.
Yeah, so that's a whole other.
That's a little weird, isn't it? So I don't know what drugs they
there.
gave you. This whole story could not even be true. You never know.
No. Well, I was at the drive-in watching The Exorcist, and I was like, oh.
Oh, God.
Isn't that nice? So, Shelley, how do you feel about putting us on the same show together again for mother-daughter relationships?
Well, it certainly gets to, the mother-daughter relationship gets to be demonstrated in live color. So, you know, it's great.
Well, I hope it's not pea soup.
No, it won't be pea soup. No.
But Shelley, the mother-daughter relationship, I think I'm really glad we're doing this because you say it's complicated, and it is. There's so many people. Nancy and I travel full-time. We run a business together. We're always, we're living basically on the road together as we travel. We've lived together. We've lived separately, done things separately too. So we're not, some people go, oh, you're still living with your mother. I'm like, don't you start with me. I'm not one of those kids in the basement living off their parents.
No.
To the no.
No.
But there's a relationship. And we've also had people go like, how long have you been with Nancy? And I'm like, dude, it's not that way.
I know.
Because I don't want to date you. Like, you know what I mean?
You're parted.
But it is it is an investment. And people say all the time, like, I would love to travel the country with my mother. I don't know if I want to do it as a business, though. Like, that's a huge deal. So, and I know, Lisa, we want to talk with you about that too, because you're embarking on that, right? With your daughters.
Yes.
So it's a very Yeah, we have to sometimes walk away and have a glass of wine at the end of the day. I'm just saying.
Oh,
So
for sure.
you start, Shelley. Where should we begin with mother-daughter relationships?
Well, as you said, first of all, it is a complicated relationship. So where we come from, we bring with us, and we're either going to bring that with us consciously or unconsciously. And I
Mhm.
know that from generation to generation, a lot of mother-daughter relationships just repeat the same patterns over and over and over until somebody says, that's it. I'm not going to repeat that pattern because it
Mhm.
wasn't healthy for me, and I'm not going to bring it on to my children. And so it's a matter of being conscious in our life and being able to discern what serves us as human beings and what doesn't, even in the
Mm.
mother-daughter relationship. And mother-daughter relationships are special. I think as mothers, we may have a tendency to project what we want for our daughters, right? And what we think is best for our daughters, the way we think is best, the way they behave. And I know that when my daughter had children, I mean, it's funny, I started to write about this in another article that I was writing, but there would be some times where she would use a tone that would trigger me because my little girl heard that tone as a child. And I would, that click sound that you make on your tongue of discipline, like, you know, like,
Mhm.
and I would find myself doing that unconsciously, but she heard it and she's going, Mom, stop. You need to stop with the click of your tongue. I hear it all the time. And so I had to become really conscious of how I was reacting to the way she was behaving. And yes, we do want to course correct ourselves and each other, and we want to be able to be that mirror for each other, but in a healthy way, not in a disapproving way.
Mm.
The way
There's a difference between discipline and disapproval.
yeah,
Mhm.
Because
or
discipline has to be there too. Otherwise, we are bad girls.
disagreement.
I
It's
will jump out the window at night, you know.
Yeah, well, I think maybe we all did. That's part of our individuating as women, as young girls wanting to be our own independent selves. And that's not always easy. I've always had the dream that my daughter would come into business with me and do all the things that I'm doing. She has absolutely no interest whatsoever
Mm.
in what I'm doing. I mean, interest from the side, encouraging, oh, good mom. Yeah, that was really nice, mom. Stuff like that, which God bless her, she does. But she has her own life and her own interests and her own family that she's totally 100% busy with. So God bless her. I mean, she is one of the most resourceful, organized young women that I know. I mean, she's taken my sense of organization to the nth degree, and she's an amazing young woman. So I feel very blessed that she came out okay.
That's better
than okay. She came out terrific.
Well, that's the
Funny.
thing. It's like the women having their individual who they are, getting to know who they are, like a man too, or anybody, can, and they need to find who they are, not necessarily follow in their parents' footsteps. There's your dad was a doctor, so now you need to be no, not necessarily.
Right.
Yeah, like Nancy and I are completely two different individuals.
Mhm.
We're both creative. However, Nancy's a painter. I'm a musician. We both dabble on like each other's sides of the arts, but like I can draw and I can do I think we both do photography, and that side is like a middle ground, and she's a musician, but there's like we're different. You know what I
Right.
mean? There's no way we're going to be identical, and we have to celebrate each other's differences.
Exactly.
But I
And
think
you-
that's kind of a bigger role in regards to women now, women getting stronger. So when we talk about mother-daughter relationships, I think we also need to expand it into women figures that can help women grow. There's a lot of, Nancy, you talk about your Nana all the time,
Yeah.
more than your mom.
Mhm.
Nancy doesn't
Oh,
talk
yeah.
about her.
My
It
mom
just,
it was almost like not even a person, because my dad was so dominant that my mom just let him do whatever, and it was brutal. And she never, I don't remember her ever standing up for us. And my grandmother, who we call Nana because she's British, and Nana would come over the hill. She'd drive from Glendale to Tahunga, and she would come and get some of us and take us to her house for a while and safeguard us for a while. I learned more from her than I ever did from my mom. And I could never understand my mom's, like, how she was so different from her mother. I could never, I still, I don't get it. I still don't see how she came out so weak. I don't know. I don't know, but she just was never, ever, she was like a servant or something. I don't know. I didn't get it. But my granny was like 4'9" little British lady, and you didn't mess with her, man. She was
Wow.
like, she put her hands on her hip and face off with my dad, who's twice as big, and tell him what for.
Mm.
And she'd gather us up and take us over the hill and take care of us for a while. And I mean, at one time I was going to 3 different schools. It's like, oh, this is hello. And so then you'd come back home and my mom would be just as, I don't, I don't know.
Hmm.
I'm
She
no
she did
explanation.
have 6 kids though. I mean,
Well,
Yeah.
but we're
she
not
had
sure if
6
all of them are
kids.
really hers. But anyway, that's a
I
whole
found
other
out,
story.
no,
That's a
I
whole
found
other
out, no,
story,
I
you
found out
know.
later my dad had 3 wives at the same time, and
Oh
they
my,
all had, I don't look at her face, they all had, they each had
It
6
gets
kids.
complicated. You use that word.
Complicated.
yeah.
They each had 6 kids that I know of,
Oh my
and as
God.
much as possible, they tried to name us all the same.
Oh my God.
So it's like, what the heck was going
Oh,
on?
now you have to tell
I don't
everybody
know.
on the radio show, like we're going to have family things happen now.
I
Thank you.
don't care. I'm over that. I'm
But
so
that's
over it that I
but
just don't
you
care.
have to move forward, and Nancy
But
moved
it's
forward.
weird.
She just moved out of the country and got out of it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that when you said there's someone who has to
Mm,
stop it,
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes you have to make this giant
Leap.
shift, and
Yeah.
exact-
sometimes you have to do it. And people
mm,
get me, like she had friends who wouldn't talk to her. I mean, when we did the tour, we had friends
mm,
that basically told, like, how can you not live here anymore? You're not going to be our friend anymore. And we're like, come on, man. It's like you've got to do what you want to do in life.
Exactly.
So those kind of shifts, Shelley, going with what you do with transformation, and I
mm,
know your relationship with your mom wasn't the easiest either, but you've got to think these, moms, these women, you 3 women held a baby in your belly for
mm.
9 frigging months, and then had to go through childbirth, and then, oh yeah, hell, you got like 18 more years to go, and then it's never ending. The 18 years is not it's not the end. So like this is like a lifelong commitment, whether you chose to or not. And you know
Yeah. One of the reasons I wanted, I asked Lisa if she would join us, because she also has a really unique relationship with her daughters, and
mm.
they have things in common. And I just love the way, Lisa, I want you to talk about your
Yeah,
relationship
Lisa D.
with your
Let
daughters.
everyone know Big Blend Lisa has no kids, but I have a lot of dogs and cats in my world,
Right.
and donkeys.
The
Oh,
wonky donkey.
another story.
Yeah, so I have 2 amazing, beautiful human beings that I call my daughters, 28 and 25. And, my oldest daughter and I joke, I've told her many times, I had a really difficult childbirth with her and ended up back in the hospital after she was born. She was an emergency
Oh.
C-section, and I got an infection and ended up back in the hospital and was in the hospital for 10 days and separated from her.
Oh,
So Um, my mother-in-law, who at the time came to stay with us, and she took care of Veronica for the first literally like 2 weeks of her life. And she was obviously not breastfeeding because I was on antibiotics. They were pumping, but it wasn't happening. And so I get home from the hospital and my mother-in-law is like, okay, well, I've been here longer than I expected. I got to go. And my husband's like, I got to go back to work. And then literally I woke up the next day with this child who I hadn't really had any connection with. And I remember the day clear as if it were this morning. And we were the only ones in the house. And I said, I have no idea what I am doing. I'm just gonna tell you that right now, kid. I have no idea. I'm gonna do the best I can. I'm gonna do as little damage to you as possible. And we're just gonna go with it. And I've told her that many times, and sometimes she'll do a Facebook post or on my birthday or Mother's Day or and she'll say, I know you didn't know what you were doing, and but I think you did fantastic. And my only goal and purpose was to guide them and really to not, like Shelley said, we want to whatever we want for them, it may not be what they came here for. And I was maybe not as evolved as I am now at the time, but I was to a certain extent. And so I certainly knew I was never putting them through what I went through as a child and what my relationship with my mother was. And but I really wanted them to be their own little souls and to have their experiences, share with them as much of the world and education and fun as I possibly could. And we did that. And they would enter different things. Dance was a big part of their life for a little while, a ton of time and money invested in that. And they came to me one day and we had a rule of communication. Like you can say anything to me as long as it's said respectfully, and I will do the same to you. So if there was something they didn't want to do or something that was bothering them, they always felt comfortable to come and talk to me. And so, at this stage, they were probably like 11 and 7. And the little one never wanted to be in dance. She was in dance because she thought it was cool. Her sister was, but she hated every second of it. And they came to me literally right before like the big end of the year dance competition, after we'd spent thousands of dollars on costumes, and said, we don't want to dance anymore. We've discussed it and we don't want to dance anymore. And I was like,
thanks for your investment.
I wanted to scream, but you know what? I said, you know what? If that is your decision, there are going to be some consequences because, and you get to, think about this. One was they were part of a team, and it was before the competition. And so I said, it will be you that will be going to your dance instructor and letting her know that you no longer want to do this. And you also owe an explanation and an apology to your team. And if you don't want to do that, then you might want to suck it up and finish out the year. They both decided they did not want to suck it up and finish out the year, and they took the consequence. But I think it was one of those things that they learned early in life. Like, I'm going to let you make your decisions. I'm not, I never wanted to force anything on them. But the communication was a big thing. And we have had that their entire lives. Going through high school, the girls would come home and they would tell me about other mother-daughter relationships and the arguments and the screaming and yelling, and I hate my mom. And they would always just be like, I like my mom. you know? And I think that is kind of the basis of our relationships. Of course, I love and adore them. They love and adore me, but we actually like each other. And, you know, now that they're adults, we have a ton of fun together. I'm still mom, you know, we're not best friends. I'm still mom. But it's funny because they want me at certain things, and they, you know, they want to do certain things together. And I'm super grateful for that.
That's
Oh,
cool.
Right. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
wonderful. That's one of the things that you mentioned, is that they felt comfortable being able to talk to you. And that was something that was really important to me also, because growing up, I was so afraid of my mom. I couldn't even tell her anything. I couldn't even go to her for any sense of comfort. You just crawling into her lap, you know. I could not do that. And so I swore that my daughter would never be afraid of me. She could say, I hate you, this, that, whatever she wanted to say. Even if she was really mad at me, she could do that because I wanted her to feel safe. I never wanted her to be afraid of me. To me, that is the worst feeling in the whole world, to be afraid of your mom. I grew up with that. So I know, and we were 5 kids, and all of us were afraid of my mom. Every
Wow.
single one of us has the same story. It's not like some in a family, some kids don't have, they have a different story. Every single one of us had the same exact story.
Wow.
As a little girl that was conscious and spiritual oriented, I knew there was another way to raise children. And I would even say, Mom, if you were kind, if you did this, and maybe there's a different way that you can know, because she was indoctrinated through fear. That's how her father, you know, got control over everybody. And that's the way she did it. She just followed along what she got and gave it to us in the same way. And it's really important that's why mother-daughter relationships, especially, I think it's different. There was a comedian, I don't know if any one of you have seen her, but she was talking about the difference between a mother-son relationship and a mother-daughter relationship. And she was saying, oh, the son, this is the mother-son. Oh, honey, you doing such a good job. Oh,
Yep.
you're fantastic. And the mother-daughter relationship is, what are you wearing?
Yeah. You've put on too much weight. Yeah.
Right.
The whole put down, it's kind of that is why I'm really, really glad about this. This is why I think about raising up the women in the world.
Yes.
Because, you know, right now women are still fighting for all kinds of things, you know, equal pay. You know, we can run our own business, but still people are going to go, oh, you know, you're not the man, you know. We've come a long way as women collectively, but at the same time, women will put each other down. And I go like,
Well, that's part of
what are
it.
you doing, man? You know,
No,
it's like,
that's part of it. That's part of when you're put down and you're in a pool of people who are put down. It's like if you're old in a swimming pool and you're trying to get somewhere first, and you just, oh, sorry, I pushed you down under. I didn't mean to. Ha, you know, you're swimming to get ahead, and you don't really care about who you left behind.
Mhm.
Well,
So
I want to say
it's
something.
competition.
Yeah,
It's
I
a
want to
it's
say
a
something.
huge competition.
It is. I want to say something to you, and that is, I love the fact that you are who you are, and Lisa is the way she is, and she is who she is. And even the banter that you have back and forth has a great deal of respect in it. Lisa, you respect what the skill set that your mom has, and Nancy, you respect the skill set and the talents that she has. And to me, that is mutual respect and mutual regard, and you honor each other as a human being to human being, and as woman to woman, and as mother to daughter, daughter to mother. And that is so special. And what you model for the rest of the world shows that mother-daughter relationships can be healthy. They can be.
And it starts there. It starts there. It really does. Because the whole thing with the women and the son thing, it's really true. I have friends who I just look at them like, why are the sons more important than your daughter? Like, what is this weird thing? It's like this, and the son can do no wrong, no discipline, but the daughter, you know, it's a very weird it is just a weird thing. But there's a
Yeah.
competitiveness that also happens between
Mhm.
mothers and daughters that should not be
Absolutely.
there. And it is, I think there's a natural bone in our body for it. Nancy and I have had some moments with that. We've had our moments and we're like, oh, well, I'm like, well, what do you want? And then she's, well, what do you want? Well, I don't know. Like we want this. Well, then we're being stupid. Like we have moments where we're like, we're being stupid. Like, don't be stupid. Let's just go have a glass of wine and move on. We don't have time. I think because we run a business
Mm.
together and we run a tour, we have commitments to people. We have, I mean, all over the place, whether, it's with our business, our clients, to our audience, we have commitments to
Mm.
podcasts, we have commitments
Mm.
to even pet sitting and where we're going when we travel, commitments to hotels and visitor bureaus when we do all our tourism work, park people. I mean, it's like commitment, commit, right? But you only make those commitments if you can make the commitment. And if you cannot, and if Nancy and I are not allowed to fail with it. We're not
Mm.
allowed. Like we
There's no
can't, I mean,
room
one of
for
us
that.
can, say, okay, this is enough. And then we'll go, okay, well, then let's figure out a way to make everyone happy. That's
Mm.
life happens like that, right?
Yeah.
Eventually one day Nancy will retire and then I'm gonna go like, what the hell's wrong with you? Get up.
What are you talking about?
What do you mean?
What are you talking about?
I don't think she'll ever retire, but it's like,
Mm.
I think that sometimes you have to do something bigger than yourselves
Mm.
to rise up. And Nancy and I, we've had our fights. Trust me, we fight.
Yeah.
We can swear at each other in the most colorful language, which is a big no-no, but it's
It's pretty
we
funny,
don't have
actually.
time for things to drag on for days. We don't have time for the don't talk to me crap. We really just don't have time for crap or drama. And you need to move on. If you got a beef, get it out, move on. That is our life, but everybody's different in what their lifestyle
Mm.
is. We just don't have time for it, but we do address it. And it will not, we do address it and it will come
Mhm.
back around if we don't have, okay, we're addressing this. Okay, but now we need to still do this, but then we're going to come back
Mm.
around. So it's not, you've got to do more than, and when I say about something bigger than yourself, it's not just a business. It is, we're dedicated to parks, public land and stuff like that. That do something sometimes bigger to raise each other up together.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think. And I think that's a greater good with women. Women as a whole need to get along to move up. And it starts with the mother and daughter. It really does.
Yes.
It does.
And it's interesting because we were brought up as children to cut each other off at the knees. That was our skill set. We knew everybody got each other into trouble all the time. And we would get in trouble and my mother it would not be a pretty sight. And I remember growing up and I was afraid to even say anything to my mom. But I remember saying to her one time, Mom, your children are afraid of you. Well,
uh-oh.
Can't even imagine. She went to every face and she put her face like this. She goes, are you afraid of me? We're going, no, Mom.
Oh my God.
It was bad. It was really bad. So I think what you're
Oh
hitting
my
is
gosh.
something really important in relationships, all relationships, especially mother-daughter relationships, because we identify on many levels. I mean, my mom was sad and depressed all the time, most of the time.
Aw,
I thought I would grow up
that's
and
sad.
be her. I thought that's my destiny.
Oh
My
God, no.
It was in my genes. It was in the DNA that all of
Mhm.
us would grow up and be unhappy and sad and depressed. And I
Yeah.
had to work really, really hard to go in there and dig out that stuff and say, you know what, that's not based in truth. And what I love about Lisa D and what she's doing with her daughters is, she's a big pickleball player and fan and everything else. And so
Oh yeah?
the three of them found this wonderful camaraderie, this
Mm.
shared interest, if I may say that. And do you want to talk about that at all, Lisa? Or
Oh,
is it-
and first, please tell us what pickleball is, because we learned cornhole and we found out that's not pickleball.
Oh, that's not pickleball.
Hey, but cornhole's fun. But tell because this is look, pickleball. Everybody say cornhole and pickleball are for people in retirement communities. This is not the truth.
Mm-mm.
It's
Mm-mm.
not.
No, no. And crazy enough, pickleball was actually invented in 1965 by a
Mm.
family in their backyard that
Oh,
created
cool.
a game in their backyard to play with friends and family. And so it has definitely evolved and is actually now the fastest growing sport in the country. And they are now getting national coverage on, like ABC, CBS. And anyway, it's a very social game. It's very inclusive. It doesn't matter how old you are, what level you are. The number one female pickleball player in the world right now is 16 years old. And she started playing in the backyard with her grandfather and her mom and her little brother. And her mom actually are doubles partners, and her mom coaches her. But no, it's definitely a growing sport. I
Cool.
thought the same thing. I was a lifelong tennis player, and I thought, oh, pickleball, that's where tennis players go to die.
Oh,
And
Uh-oh.
and I was at a PPA, Professional Pickleball Association tournament out in Newport Beach a few years ago, and actually put a paddle in my hand and started to play, and it is massively addicting. It is just so fun. And
Cool. That's
um,
cool.
so yeah, so then I started playing and loved the game. And I just noticed that there was no space out there with like dedicated pickleball apparel. And so I said to my daughters, and I'm a serial entrepreneur and have had many businesses, sold many businesses. And I said to the girls, this is what I want to do. And so I just started talking about it. And then, and then my oldest daughter came to me and said, I think I want to work with you on this. Like, I want to help, I want to do this. And I'm like, okay. And so then my youngest daughter, my older daughter, Veronica, convinced Olivia, the younger daughter, that it would be a really great story if a mother-daughter apparel company, but it'd be an even better story if it was mother-daughter-daughter. And we were all three included. So everyone has come to the table with their skills and
Cool.
and their
Very cool.
their knowledge. They've now started to pick up pickleball as well, playing, and have found it to also be, I mean, they're in their 20s and they're playing with people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. I mean, there's people in their 90s that are still playing.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, so but it's also it's going to be a brand where it is uplifting. It is actually, our tagline is empowerment through play, where people are empowered to try new things, meet new people, be active, and also just have really cool pickleball apparel.
That's
So
that's smart. And at the same time, like when you talk about sports, like golf works, right? For people going out, I mean, they still say, look how women had to fight to get on the golf course.
Oh, yeah.
Just saying.
Mhm.
So there's a whole thing with that, right? And apparel had to change for women to have it. It's like, hey, we need that. Tennis, all of that. Women's clothing had to change
Mhm.
in sports big time. One of the very first mountaineers, Faye. I can't. Oh, I hate that I'm not remembering her last name. Anyway, she is the first lady that climbed Mount Rainier in Washington State. And she took she tried 3 or 4 times to go up there, and she had guys with her, but she was the first woman to actually ascend to the peak. And she used bobby pins to mark where she was, because there was times where she had, so she could say, okay, this is it. Okay, I made it here. She could count and whatever. And they didn't have clothing for her, and people made fun of her going out. And this is in the 1800s. Here she is in dresses. I mean, for God's sakes, these men are like, and look, if you look at what men wore way back when, I'm sorry, that was more girly than what women wear. Like, so don't even, come on, little bloomers and little shoes. Like, look at me, so
With
it's
the gold
I
buckles.
think the apparel thing, if you look at the history of women getting into sports and how they've had to say, hey, in soccer, women's shorts and stuff are going to have to be different than men in sports, like in playing soccer. And I played soccer and I played field hockey. And I
Mhm.
whacked a lot of ankles, but anyway,
Yeah,
don't
you
tell my
did.
mother.
I already know.
But the empowerment side, I love this because there's something like sports, you have this camaraderie, but
Mhm.
there's also this, like, when you go to a business meeting or a mixer, and I think chambers of commerce and all those networking things are very important and powerful. There's education and you meet people, all great. But there's this everybody just jumps for a deal, right? But in sports, there's this communication over something of shared interest and love, and you get to know each other. Like they say, like if you want to be part of if you want to be, get to really connect with people in the Chamber of Commerce, volunteer for an event, because now you're part of something
Part of it.
versus let me go
Right.
to a meeting and just grab your business card and go, hey, you want to buy this? That doesn't work as well. So through
Yeah.
what you're doing, I think through sports, it is empowering because there's also meditation that goes with focus.
Right.
Focus. And Shelley,
Mhm.
you do a meditation on your website. Everyone go to Shelley's new website, shelleywhizin.com. Lisa has a hand in that, right? I know.
It's a
And
big
there's a
hand.
meditation on there. You've got a meditation for
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Isn't sports that focus part of meditation?
I think anything that we do, if when we focus in and we allow ourselves to tap in, it's funny too. I went to the doctor this morning and we were talking about, oh no, I went to an exercise coach because I want to get back into my own exercise regime.
Play pickleball.
Playing ball, and I took my
Started.
fourth class. I have my fourth class, so I'm on
Cool.
my way. I'm on my way. It's kind of funny hitting the ball and stuff like that. But when we visualize something, regardless of what it is, it helps us, and we meditate on it. It helps us to actually do the thing that we're meditating or visualizing. And when I went to the exercise coach today, he said, so what are your health goals? How do you see yourself in 6 months? So I told him, I am vibrant, I am healthy, I am toned, I feel great, I'm lighter, I feel fantastic. He goes, you know what? I have never in all the years that I've been doing this heard anybody visualize so well. When we allow ourselves to do that, it's like even with my daughter and I, sometimes when we're out of sync, oh my God, I feel awful. I can hardly function when we're
Right.
out. I can hardly function.
Mhm.
When I visualize us being together and we're in sync and we feel happy, and then I feel so much better. So it's creating a way to create what it is that you want instead of focusing on all the crap that we don't want. And, I was telling a client the other day that there's two motivations to get somewhere. The motivation to go towards what you want, or the motivation to go away from what you don't want. When you go away from what you don't want, we create more of it, because the
Yeah,
universe
because you're
doesn't
focusing
hear
on.
the don't. The universe just hears the want blank, whatever that blank is. And so even if my daughter, I'm always bringing it back in this session to mothers and daughters because
Right.
that's our topic. But when I'm out with my daughter, when I'm able to visualize us back in sync with each other, I feel better. And then I can even talk with her, and she can sense when I'm not feeling great about what's going on, and I can sense when she's not feeling great. There's an energy of separation that we pull away. We have a tendency of pulling away, shutting down, and being silent. And then we feel the energy. You can feel when you're out. I mean, how can you not feel it, right?
I know boyfriends who have felt that, and it's like, oh, holy crap. I mean, it's strong when it's a fiery flame of pissiness.
Yes, that's a good way of saying it.
Okay.
It is. It's like it's a UT.
But it's a,
Yeah,
but
or
it's
whatever
a,
you call it.
it is, at the end of the
not
day,
fun.
it's a protective device.
Of course.
It's putting up the walls so you
Yeah.
don't get so hurt as
Yeah.
you know the other person can hurt you. So it is a protective device.
That's a good point.
And once the walls go up, yeah,
Yeah.
they, at the same time as they may protect, they can also do a lot of damage.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because what do we
You
protect
know,
ourselves from? We're already hurt. And
yeah.
so the hurt just lingers and keeps going, you know?
I think
Mhm.
when you know someone so well too, and you trust each
Mhm.
other, you also know where to poke somebody too.
Yeah.
Oh,
And that's
yeah.
the thing
Oh,
with
for
mothers
sure.
and daughters. And this
Oh,
is
well,
I
that's
think
the
that
thing with
is at
anybody
the
who
I
knows
think
anybody well enough.
yeah,
You
but
know
mothers and
where their
daughters are
soft spots
really
are.
good at it. Women especially. I'm sorry, but we have that little fine tune in to know, oh yeah, zing. And or like, no, you didn't just do that. Oh, yes, I did. Oh, yeah, well, let me do
Mm.
this zing back.
Yeah.
And so
I
then it becomes the zing show. And none of
I
us
think
really,
it
why
does.
do we want that? Why do we do
No,
that? So
we
yeah,
don't want it, but we're good at it because we're always left on the back lines where the guys went out. Oh, let's stand in a straight line with our guns and go kill the other side and let's be shot while we do it. That's the male thing. And then we were back in the campfire going, oh yeah, watch this. Oh yeah, watch that. You
Yeah.
know, so that's the difference between men and women. Let's just go full force frontal and then, or nah, we're on the backside and we're going to do it this way.
we
And we're going to
manipulate.
do like, we probably make better spies
Mm. Yeah.
because yeah, we probably do.
So Shelley, on that, I mean, we've talked a lot of the positives, but there's a lot of like Mother's Day can be really brutal for people. Like the
Oh,
holidays, right? So there's a lot of broken relationships or relationships that I know people haven't talked to their mother for 2 to 3 years and it's like, "Oh, just pick up your phone, it's your mother. How can you be like this?" And sometimes maybe you do need to walk away. So that there's an actual
Mm.
truth to that.
yes.
Sometimes
Depends.
you need to get the hell out of a relationship that is not you can say thank you for giving me life and
Right.
move on,
Yeah.
right? So, and there's a lot of friends I have that are also adopted, and do they want to know their birth parent? Maybe not if there's like a drug thing or so everybody has a different
Mm.
situation. But there's sometimes where pettiness becomes it starts as like, here's a little cloud in the sky. Next thing you know, we've made it into a thundercloud and we've decided to close the doors, close the walls, like Nancy says. And was
Mhm.
it that necessary? Where can we all get back onto a pathway when we do that? I mean, Nancy, like I said, we have to have a glass of wine and then move on. And
Mhm.
eventually we just keep working on it,
Right,
on
right,
on
right.
things we
Well,
do in life, but working on it.
mm,
But like, how can people, we're just weird. Like Nancy and I are just weird in how we work and live, but
okay.
no, because other people have grandkids involved.
Ah,
I mean, there's a whole, we have these other commitments, but people have kids involved. They have spouses. They have things that, everybody gets impacted in a family over a mother-daughter relationship. So how can people look at this on, a side? And then there's Mother's Days where someone has passed as well. So there's also that pain. But not to get into the painful side, but I really think it needs to be addressed.
So here's a couple of things. One, when we, and I believe this wholeheartedly 100%, when we treat each other from one human being to another, Lisa mentioned this in the way that she said, I've got two beautiful human beings that I call my daughters. When we treat each other from one human being to another, everybody's got the same emotions. We all feel sad. We all feel depressed. We all feel all of these things, every single human being. When we allow each other to be human and hold the space for each other to have their human relationship, their human experiences without judging each other. And when, as mothers, if we looked at our daughters as one human being to another and not a reflection of who we are, necessarily, or forcing them to be the way we want them to be, or dance because we are invested. We never got to dance, so we want them to dance. And we want to live vicariously through our daughters, right? Then we impose our own will onto them and make them wrong for not wanting to be like us. I mean, okay, my daughter, I'm a death midwife. She doesn't want to talk about that stuff. You know, I know it to be healthy for her and blah, 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 blah. But I need to respect that she doesn't want to talk about that stuff. It's not her thing, and allow her to have her own human experiences. The second thing is we need to want, sounds interesting, need to want. We need to want to heal. We need to want to have a relationship. If we don't want to have a relationship with that person, it's not going to go anywhere.
Right.
It's not going to go anywhere. And so we need to want to have a relationship. We need to want to heal something that doesn't feel good. And we want to be able to agree to even disagree and have differences so that we're not the same. We're not cookie cutters. We're human.
We don't want to
beings.
be cookie cutters.
Right.
Yeah,
No,
Shelley, I want to add something to that. Is expectation.
Mm.
So as a child, you have an expectation of what your mother or father is supposed to be, right?
Right.
Right.
And often, you know, they're supposed to be perfect. And they're not. They're human beings. As children, we don't understand that. And then, you know, whatever that childhood situation is, and as we grow and we try to heal whatever whatever happened to us in our childhood that we feel bad about, or we feel hurt, or we feel unloved, and we carry that with us into adulthood, we also have to want to heal that ourselves, but then release the expectation that that parent, that mother, that father, were supposed to be perfect, and accept they probably did the best they could.
Good
And and be grateful that the things that happened to you happened for a reason. They made you who you are today. And I think expectation is a big part of that.
Expectation can get you into trouble, but it's also something about, if you're going to have expectations, it should only be on yourself. You know, I look at Nancy. Nancy's childhood was like crazy, but she's like, screw this. I'm off to Africa. I'm doing my thing. And she did what she wanted. You know, I think there's something about like,
it made it far easier to do what I wanted to do.
But you were stronger from the negative crap that you put up with so long. I think it's like, it's fight or flight. You as a kid, you're in that middle ground of you're going to roll over, play dead, and then sometimes you'll fly, sometimes you'll fight. But as a kid, if you're in an abusive household, you're in that middle ground that really sucks. And then as an adult, you can take all of that and say, okay, it's my time. Or some people don't, and that's the sad part. And it can drag you. Shelley, do you have that with clients where it like kind of continues on through people's lives? Even as later in life, you can go, man, I've been holding on to this baggage for 10 years. Like, it's time to move on.
Let it go.
Yeah, I have a client whose parents had no joy whatsoever. So she had no role model for what joy looks like, feels like, tastes like, nothing. So for her to feel joy in her life is a struggle. She gets glimmers of it, but to sustain it is a whole nother thing. And then chooses partners that are the same as her parents. And so we do that too. I mean, I married my mother 3 times, God bless her. I married her 3 times. And one of the things I realized was I thought love and abuse was normal. I thought that was the norm. And
so you're brought up that way as a kid.
So you think that's the normal way to do it. So then but
now I think this is the era of positive change, that we know we can do better.
Mm.
Science has taught us that. I mean,
But
everything
then
that you're doing, Shelley, is there's emotions, right? But emotions have a scientific background. They have a scientific base. The neurons and all of that stuff is still scientific. And then there's mental health issues that all stem from this stuff that comes down through.
Right.
And now it lands in DNA land. I mean, there was no mental health issues like when I was growing up. It was like, oh, so and so's a nut, put them in the home and zap them on their head, kind of thing, right?
Right.
Back in the day. Sorry,
that's
but
a
they still
mental
now they're
health
finding out
issue.
that that actually does help. But so, but
No.
but it was like if you mental health was you're nuts. It's a dirty word.
Yeah.
Whereas I think we also don't need to look at if someone is dealing with mental health. It's kind of like sometimes you just actually need to fix something. What do you think on this? Like really, because mother-daughter stuff is the mental health stuff too.
It is, because we think that when we grow up with our mothers, whatever that role model was, we think that's what it is, you know. But then I know I had a girlfriend, I still have her, God, thank God, and I would hang out at their house more than my house because it was more fun to be over there in the way that her mother was than the way my mother was.
Well, how many of my friends hung out at our house, Nancy?
Oh gosh, it's like a boarding house.
That's right.
There's only-
Everybody come.
I was like, oh boy.
Yeah.
And then the
Everybody
parents
lived
would
at our house.
call and the parents would call and say, did you say this to my child? I'm like, I don't know. I don't remember. I'm busy. Leave me alone.
They all lived at our
Oh,
house over time, and she
That's
put them
what
to
Over
work.
I
time.
always wished for. I wished that I would have that kind of house, but nobody wanted to come over.
You should have gone to school with me, Shelley. Would have been cool. We would have gotten
We
so
had a
much
great
trouble.
time. I know.
You see,
I
but
love
that
But see, there's a thing, like, because the way I was brought up, women are completely only to wash floors and make dinner, and when and if the husband chooses to have sex with you, have sex with him, and that was it. Then once you became a mother, you're now not useful as a wife anymore because you more concentrated on the kid than the husband.
Mm,
That's how I was brought up. And
wow.
I mean, I'm really not that old. It sounds
Yeah.
like something from the 1500s, but no, that can carry on in some families.
Yeah.
That kind of
yeah, we travel
reasoning.
America. We see it.
And
I bet.
I'm serious.
my dad was so dominant and my mom was so nothing that I actually ended up blaming her more
Mm,
than him, even though he was the perpetrator of it.
mhm.
She was the person I looked to defend us and
Mhm.
help us, and it just there
Yeah.
was nothing. And then here comes 4'9" little British granny driving in her little car and packing us up and taking us to safety.
That's huge.
And so Nana became my hero, and it made my mom look even worse because it was her daughter.
So
I'm like,
can we bring that
what
around to
happened?
grandmothers, the role of grandparents?
Oh,
We were
Yeah.
listening
time.
on our drive across country recently. We were listening to an interview about what was going on with fentanyl and this whole the money that
Yeah,
all
gosh.
the drug companies are having to
Mm.
dish out, and what's happening to all the parents, and how so many grandparents have become parents again to kids.
Mhm.
Maybe they lost their parents, their mothers, their
Mm.
fathers, or maybe the parents can't handle the kids having these addictions, and it's becoming a real issue we have across the country. So when we talk about the mother-daughter relationship, I want to include the grandmothers in there,
Mhm.
because I think it's a big deal because grandmothers also change. I
Yes.
know friends who are grandmothers who said, well, I screwed that up. I better fix this now and let me
Mhm.
change this with my daughter and her child now.
Yeah.
So I see a lot of mending going on, which
Mhm.
I think is beautiful because I don't think this would have happened maybe 50 years ago.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think we're in an elevated place now, but it depends on where you are.
Yeah.
And this is Nancy's right. I mean, it depends on where. Thank God for the internet. because
Mm.
we have a voice and we need to use it now while we can. Just saying,
And quick
'cause you never
knowledge. We
know.
have so much quick
But
knowledge at our
yeah,
fingertips now
we
that we
need to
didn't
use it
have
now.
before.
So there's issues, but I think we have to look at the role of grandmothers now. And there's
Yes.
younger grandmothers, and there's, I mean, my best friend's a grandma, and she's happy as punch about it.
Yeah.
And I'm going, "You're too young to be a grandma." She's like, "Lisa, you're almost 50. Did you know that?" And I went, "What? How did that, how the hell?" She's like, "I'm your best friend. What the hell? How do you not know your age?" I'm like, "Well, that's what best friends are there for, to remind you of the stuff you don't want to know." But
Well, I have to say that I feel so blessed to be a grandmother. And I have 3 fantastic human beings that I call my grandchildren. And I have had a blast with them ever since they were all born. And
Cool.
the twins were born. My daughter said, "Would you move to Tucson?" Because my son-in-law was a baseball player and he was playing for the Arizona Diamondbacks, and they were working
mm,
in Tucson. And she said, "Would you," and I was just recently divorced and going through a divorce, "would you move to Tucson and help me with the babies?" And so I said, "Well, I won't be the nanny. I will be the grandma. So if you're going to get a night nanny or something like that, do that. But I'm not going to be the nanny. I'm going to be the grandma." And I spent the first year of their life with them, and it was the best thing ever, and still is. I mean,
Mm.
I bring to them something different than my daughter can't bring, because she's all tied up with having a job and having 3 kids, da, 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 and it's a lot on her plate. And I'm able to bring another dimension to their lives. And
mm,
being the way that I am, all spiritual and everything else, my daughter kind of, "Oh yeah, mom." But it enlightens them, and I get to be different with them than I even was aware of being with my own daughter as a mother.
mm,
So we do get to be different. We do get to bring new skill sets, my new consciousness that I've worked so hard to get, to bring that to them and bring them
mm,
life lessons. And they really appreciate it too. I mean, I'm a very hands-on grandma. And when I would take them to school or pick them up from school, I would always ask them this: "What is one new thing that you learned today that you did not know yesterday?" And at first they would say nothing. I'd go, "That's absolutely not true. You learned something new.
Mm.
Otherwise, why would you be going to school?" Right. And so I said, "Go through your classes. What did you learn? What was your first period? What did you learn there?" And then they would teach me. I said, "I want to learn what you're learning. So teach me something that you've learned that I get to learn."
mm,
Started with that. Once they got used to that, I added another question: "What did you learn about yourself today?
mm,
And what was the circumstance that you learned it?" And man, it just became richer and richer and richer, and the answers. And now they're cognizant of learning and loving to learn, or at least being aware of learning, that they're going to learn something new every day, and that they're going to learn something new about themselves and dynamics between friends and all of that. They're just going to become more aware of it. And it's really wonderful. I feel so blessed as a grandmother. I
that's
just,
really cool.
it
I
is.
think I think because we're always growing, right? Hopefully, if you're of that pathway to do that, that you grow even as mothers and daughters, no matter what age as well.
That's right.
It's a beautiful thing. So, even, Nancy's mom, my grandmother, she, eventually Nancy's father died, and she had to change her life. And it was an interesting process for her. She
Mm.
did have a good sense of humor. She was artistic like Nancy is.
Mm.
And
That's
she
true.
did encourage me as a young girl. I did write her letters, and she encouraged me to write. And I
Mm.
would write her essays about wildlife. And
Mm.
I had wildlife, no matter where we lived, my walls were horses and animals. And It's funny because, we finally got to the Okefenokee swamps, and this was a
That's so
goal of
cool.
my life as a kid to go to here we are living in Africa, seeing all the animals you can imagine. But no, I want to go to the States and see the Okefenokee swamps. And I remember writing her an essay, which we have in our storage unit in Tucson, by the way, where we live, writing her an essay about all the bobcats and the alligators and all the animals of the Okefenokee swamps. So like, there's the negatives, like Nancy says, but people do evolve. And I think your mother did. And then we won't go into your mother's final story, but like, there was some evolving with her in some ways, a lot of ways not, but you've got to say, like, there were some positives, right, Nancy, from her at the end. Well, part way through, let's put it that way. There were some parts.
Okay,
There
so
were some
well,
good parts, and that's something I want to close this on a positive note, because
no, okay,
not
I will
everyone
say,
is completely
okay,
evil.
no,
You
she
know?
wasn't evil at all. She
No.
was almost a non-entity. She just wasn't there. She wasn't bad. She just was not there when you needed her, and so, and then we were left with the evil one. And um, so part of the stuff that happened lies on the shoulders of the person who didn't stand up. Whereas my grandmother would come in and stand up, guns a-blazing, little 4-foot Nana would come in and shake the world and change things up and made things happen. And I don't know, because I was just a kid, I don't know what went on with my mom, but um, I think it was probably way more difficult to be her than I think or thought in the circumstances. And, this fact, she never learned to drive. She never really held down a job that I can remember. I think she tried for a job once and in 2 weeks got fired. But um, it, she just, sometimes I wanted to shake her and say, wake the hell up. Wake up. Are you in there? Is there anybody else? So it's just a thing. And I don't know. She wasn't mean. I know she loved animals and wildlife and all that, but just not present. And I don't understand. I don't get it.
But I think
But
what you just said is that you understand her, how much she probably was going through on her own, like how much, like
I don't
you know
know.
what I mean? Yeah.
Had her own pain.
I'm sure there was something that
Yeah.
she just couldn't
Mm.
handle, and she
Mm.
probably needed some outside help,
Mm.
some
Yeah,
interference of
that's
some
something to think
sort.
about. I think that's kind of my point, was like, there's going to be reasons for everybody's
Yeah.
trauma of
She
childhood, and it
was
goes generationally. But
she was an identical twin to my aunt, who just had no problems at all, married a guy that knew how to sell insurance. They did quite well financially, and they were totally different.
Mm.
so they weren't quite identical. So who knows?
Well,
I mean, could
they
be
looked the
genetics,
same.
but
They
yeah.
looked the same, but Aunt Joyce was just all sarcastic and spicy and had fun, and she was smart, made good choices, and my mom was just like,
Well, in Mother's Day, I mean, not to carry on with Nancy's mother, but maybe
yeah.
talk about your grandmother. But in the spirit of Mother's Day, let's reflect on. And Shelley, you don't have to talk about your mom either. But at least I don't know about your
Not
side
just
either.
my mom.
But
No,
let's talk about a really good mother-daughter memory. So it could be with your children, or your daughters, or your Nana, Nancy, or whoever. But let's talk about a favorite. Let's close with just a beautiful memory that pops into your head, the first thing. So Lisa, let's start with you, with your mom or your daughters, a beautiful mother-daughter moment.
Yeah, I have to say, I mean, there have been a lot of them. Probably one of the most impactful. I am this year a 10-year cancer survivor. And
Oh, wonderful.
time that I was diagnosed,
Awesome.
they were 15 and 18. And I was diagnosed
Wow.
with a rare form of breast cancer and had a
Oh,
36% chance to survive even with treatment. So the day that I told my daughters was really, I think, just a huge turning point and a bond that became so unbreakable that nothing can get to us ever. That, you know, their side of it of, oh my God, I could lose my mom. And my side of it was, I'm not going out of this life with my kids at 15 and 18, you know.
No.
And they became the inspiration for the fight. They remain the inspiration for the fight. And we have a lot of gratitude for life and our relationship.
oh, that's
Awesome.
awesome. That's perfect, you
Mm.
know, but I'm glad you're here.
Me
Hell
too.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, hell yes. That's awesome. And look at now creating different businesses. It's awesome. And with your daughters, that is freaking
Mm,
amazing. See, I watched my language there. So,
you did.
Shelley, what about you? Let's talk about a mother-daughter moment.
I think one of the my mother-daughter moments with my grandchildren too is when they thought that I had a heart thing and went into the ER and so on. And so it's the same kind of thing, I think, with what Lisa's talking about. When we
Mm,
feel we're going to lose somebody, all of a sudden we step up and realize, oh my God, this time is really precious and I want to make the best of it. And just them giving me a party for my birthday, all of them was just, it was so special. And my daughter went way out of her way to make everything so special. And she did the table set, everything was just amazing. And she wanted to make it very special for me. And that just really touched me deeply, that I
mm.
could
That's
feel
awesome.
the appreciation and the gratitude. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What
That's
about you,
cool.
Nancy? You can talk about Nana instead of your mother.
Well, in a way, I'd rather talk about you.
Mm.
Uh-oh. I'm going under the
Um,
table. I didn't do it.
no, no, you did. Don't even. No, um, I I loved when and I still love the sense of discovery that Lisa
Mm,
has. Like when she was a little kid, we sometimes when we went on hikes, I would get down on my hands and knees and walk with her because I could see at the same level as a little kid. And believe me, you see way more than what you think
mm.
because adults are only looking straight ahead, maybe up once in a while, maybe down once in a while, but they don't see what little kids see on their hands and knees. So I was like, okay, that's fun.
Mm.
There's a sense, no, it's fun. And there's a sense of discovery of looking from different angles that you don't normally look from. And I think that is one of the helpful things that get you through life is, I didn't mean to come off so negative during the show, but there were things that happened that I just still battle with. But, if you can shift your perspective in a way, like a little child does, and as they grow up, the perspective changes. And I
Mhm.
think that's an important thing to remember.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's funny. It's funny you say that because my memory of it just is weird because it's weird because it came up like as I was asking you all, to answer this question, this is what came up in my head is when we were living in Kenya and I was a little kid
Mm-hmm.
and we were doing a lot of safari work and out in the wilderness and stuff. And Nancy,
Yeah.
would take gazillions of photos for her art. And I mean, that's what our storage unit is
Mm,
Nancy's art and slideshows and my writing. That it's just everything is it's like the art storage
okay.
unit.
The
And
gallery.
But anyway, so like I want to take photos. Like I could see what she was doing with composition. I learned composition. And as a
Mhm.
kid, like I was into what she was photographing and why would you take it from this angle? Why, how, what?
Mhm.
And
Oh
I wanted
gosh,
a
yeah.
camera. Now you've got to think we were living in Kenya and this is in the late 70s. And this was film. Do you know how hard it was to get film
Oh
processed and
gosh.
even to get
Oh,
film?
yeah.
And
Took
so I wanted a
weeks.
camera. I wanted my own camera. That's all I wanted was that, right?
Yeah.
And Nancy just was like, oh, shit, what am I going to do? So she made me my own camera. She made me a cardboard camera with a viewfinder and made it.
Mm.
She made, there was, okay, so let me do that. It was the camera. And then there was a time I wanted to be everything that I experienced. Every time we went to a restaurant, oh, I want to be a restaurant person. We had a
Yeah.
housekeeper. I wanted to be the
I want to be a
housekeeper. I at one
housekeeper.
time wanted to be a nun. So like you go through these things. And so she was like, right, explore, go for it. If you want to do it, start looking at it, right? And this is a little kid. So she made me a camera and I thought I was using a real camera for many years. And then she would show me her photos and say, you took that. Because she
Oh,
couldn't.
that's
So a lot of
funny.
people get mad when I tell this story, but I'm like, what was she gonna do?
Oh,
How
that's horrible.
no, it's not a bad thing. It was she was helping me. I learned focus. I felt I was viewing, I was doing everything I wanted. But people get mad at this story, and I'm going, my
I
mom
love this.
gave me this. But at the same time, I wanted to be a restaurant person. And in Africa, like really, we didn't have much. Just,
Well, you
we
couldn't
just
get
didn't have
anything back
American
then.
stuff at all. So I wanted us all into this whole thing. And her and a friend built me my own restaurant on, and then
Mhm.
the ants took it, the ants ate it.
The
Like this
termites
little
ate it.
shed with little, and they painted
That's so
Sesame
funny.
Street, which I didn't even really know what Sesame Street was. So that was how I learned Sesame Street. So she painted murals of things, and I would go in there and play fake kitchen and all of that. So those things where
Mm.
moms have to be very creative,
Yeah.
but the ants really ate it.
They
The
did.
termites came in and
Termites
the whole
came in.
thing sunk into a
They
big
kept
ant hole.
sinking and sinking.
So I think that's really
Oh.
cool when parents can
Yeah.
fuel the
Mm.
fire, and even if you do not have the resources,
Yeah.
be creative about it. And
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
for all those who don't think my mom should have made me a camera and faked me out,
It's
I'm
great.
running around with a camera every day of my life. Not
Right.
on the phone, not
Mhm.
the phone thing. It's what we do for a living now. So
Well, at least you know how to focus and you know composition and you know what you need to look for.
yeah. So it's all positive. But thank you both. What a
Mhm.
great conversation. I think we did a little bit of everything, the positive, the negative. We did the complicated.
Yeah.
Ew, nobody wants to get into the complicated, but life is complicated. Lisa, can you give everybody your website? How can people connect with you as a brand manager, marketing expert, and even going into your new company for pickleball?
Yeah, actually, the best way to reach me is just through email, lisa@vibrantceo.com.
She's vibrant. I like the
She
name.
is.
She's vibrant. Everyone, ShelleyWhizin.com is the website to go to. Shelley is here every first Sunday. So keep up with us at bigblendradio.com. She's got the first Sunday slot. She's like, I'm taking it. It's mine. So happy Mother's Day,
got it.
ladies.
Mother's Day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you so much.